Yo, what's good, everyone? Today we got a special guest in the building, bro. We got Gabe. We got G Money Love from the Drug Dealers. Bro, what is in the house? How you doing today, brother?
What up, bro? How are you, man?
Fucking awesome, bro. Thank you for coming, man. We got a couple questions. We're gonna hang out, smoke a little, have a good time.
Hell yeah, dude. I'm looking forward to it, bro.
Hell yeah, bro. Hell yeah. Too easy. So first off, we'll get right into it. Um, let's give a little bit of background, man. What got you into cannabis? What drew you to the cannabis cultivation? And was there a defining moment that you knew that this was 100% your passion?
Yeah, man. My mom was in like a real bad house fire as a kid when I was a kid, and she got blown off the roof of the house into a wall, and she spent about 9 months in the hospital.
Shit.
And yeah, and she was on all kinds of painkillers and stuff. My mom grew up in the 50s and 60s, so like she was exposed to weed and stuff, but she had never smoked it. and so she had this friend who was like, "Hey man, you should maybe, not take so many painkillers and try cannabis." So this is the mid
All right.
80s. So she actually started smoking flower then. And so I was probably about, 10 years old. So I started being just exposed to it. Like it was just kind of around, you know, pretty frequently. I was one of those kids who actually started smoking with my mom at like a pretty young age. Like when I started smoking, you know, I was telling you before the show, like we used to go into the city, into Philly. I grew up outside Philly. So we used to go into Philly to get the weed. And so my mom was always like, "Well, hey, I want you to make sure you get weed from me because it's the cleanest. It's not going to be weed that's messed up." So
Hmm.
like I had a very good relationship with her about it. And then I moved from Philly out west when I was 18. And I'll never forget in 1995, I was 19 years old, and I went to this house that my buddy Aaron lived at, and he pulled out this bud of Shiva Shanti, and it was just like this baseball bat
Ooh.
weed. And I'll never forget looking at that bud and being like, "Oh my god! Like, how do I do this? Like, how do I get involved?" And so the next year we actually did Summer Fish Tour 96. And then, my partner's plan was to go and buy some equipment and start growing weed.
Hmm.
So we actually went to the Hydro Farm store in Philadelphia. Back then, um, you weren't ordering your equipment online. You know what I mean? Like you
Yeah,
were
100%.
you
Yeah.
you were trying to get it from as far away from where you were growing as
Yeah.
possible. We were like, well, if we're going back to Montana, Philadelphia, we should be okay. So we ended up buying a bunch of grow equipment. We went back to Montana, and within 2 weeks of being there, we had a house. One of the first cuts that anybody gave me was, I think, Skunk One.
Oh, okay.
And then we ended up doing some stuff with some Canadian dudes up there. And I had a seed, ironically enough, one of the most interesting plants I've ever seen. It was almost like the lavender color you have in your background here. And the leaves were that color. Everything was that color. It was called purple rose. And right then and there, people like, I've worked at some really big facilities, and they would do these video bios, and they'd be like, "Why did you get into growing cannabis?" And honestly, like just straight up originally, it was really just to support my snowboarding habit. You know what I mean? Like, and people are always like, "You can't say that." And I'm like, "Well, I mean, it's true. Like, I
Yeah.
really I did masonry. Masonry could be kind of seasonal and stuff like that, or else, like, hey, if it snows, like we're not working. You know what I mean? So like it just went
Yep.
hand in hand, but like budget wise, you're coming up a little short. So back, I started growing in 96, moved down here to Colorado. Ironically enough, a friend of mine brought me a cut of sour diesel in a spring green salad in 2000, like before the TSA existed.
Yeah.
I was doing like, early 2000s, I was doing like a 5 lighter in my basement of sour D, and pounds were, $5,000. So, I mean, life was good. And that was a way to really supplement climbing mountains and going snowboarding and mountain biking and like going all these places that like you really enjoy doing as a young 20-year-old. So that was really, what got me into it. And I did that, through the 2000s until, I did construction. I worked for a masonry company for like, 12 years. And as I did that, legalization started kind of opening up. 2009, I got into commercial stuff. And ever since then, I've been doing commercials. So that's what got me into it. If, that answers your question.
No, that's a good answer, bro. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. I love it. All right. So, what were your biggest obstacles that you faced when you first entered the industry, and how did you overcome them?
As far as like commercial industry,
yeah, as far as
well, I mean, honestly, ironically enough, one of the biggest obstacles when I first got into it was just finding all my paperwork from my arrests. Like that was because when we first started, like that's when they start. Like in the beginning, there was no badging, and then you had to kind of go through this process where you needed to get a badge and prove that you weren't a convicted felon and all the rest of this stuff. So I remember, having to round all that up the first time. It was like such a challenge, and the whole time you're working, you're nervous. You're like, dude, what happens if they find some stuff and all of a sudden they go back on me, And, one of the other big challenges has just been like really scaling things, for the longest time. People kind of emulated what they did in their basement. So they would build, when I refer to the cannabis industry, I refer to like Gen 1 buildings, which were the original Colorado cannabis grows. I really make it Colorado. There was some stuff going on in California, but that stuff was underground, whereas in Colorado, like we were the first ones to really pave the commercial the first steps. You have the Gen 1 buildings, which were the HPSs. A lot of times they had hoods and stuff like that. And as that's
buildings, for sure. Yeah. Sorry.
And as that's progressed, it's definitely, we've learned so much, but I would say that was one of the biggest challenges was some of those learning curves, some of those trying to figure it out, going from HPS to LED, designing buildings that actually are for growing. They're not over glorified basements. So I think that was really one of the biggest challenges because ultimately we're kind of the guys that developed that tech. You know what I mean? Like now
the standard.
Now that it's 15 years in, like, you look back and like, one of my partners, Phil Haig, like he was one of the first guys to start using DE fixtures, and once DE fixtures hit, like everybody was using them and like it really changed the game. It made it so like I'm not going to sit here and say that I was some badass kick-ass grower on single-endeds. I got like 1.25 pounds of light, dude. Like I never got 2 pounds of light on single-ended fixtures. I'm not going to front, but all of a sudden when we started using double-ended fixtures and rolling benches and all this, all of a sudden, like, dude, some of our best rooms, we got 100 grams a square foot. You know what I mean? So it's like, oh my God, like it's such a change. So, and I think a lot, when I first, one of the big things that I've seen throughout the years is like, everybody's like, oh, you got to have variety. You do have to have variety. But the truth of the matter is like, if you grow the same stuff all in one room, it's going to do so much better. Like you're going to have a better quality of product. And that's a really big challenge in this industry to try and get across to ownership and stuff like that, because in so many of these commercial buildings, the guys that own the building, they're not weed people, they're money people.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So like you have to come in there and you're like, I need you to appreciate this fine bottle of wine. And they're like, I don't drink.
Yep.
you're like, well, fuck, this is a real challenge.
Yeah.
So like, I think that's honestly, I think throughout the years, like that has been one of the biggest challenges is getting the money people to understand the product and why it's worth X. You know what I mean? So
Oh yeah. I 100% understand that, and it's literally just a cash grab now. Nobody gives a fuck. Like,
there's
well,
very few. There's very few. I mean,
yeah, yeah, 100%. There are still, like, don't get me wrong. I know there's 100%, like a decent amount, like a handful for sure, that are out there still having like a standard about their quality, and they're staying to it regardless of the fucking price and shit. Like they sticking to the good shit, right? But
yeah.
there's, like you were saying, there's all of these other companies that are just in it for the money, that they push out fucking hundreds of thousands of pounds a year, and it floods the market to where it's just like that now that good shit is worth even less, which it shouldn't be. You know what
Well,
I mean?
in so many markets too, you're competing with people who are going out of business. You
Hmm.
know, Michigan after this fall, you know, they received another 20% attrition. So 20% of the licenses there on dispensaries and cultivations just didn't fucking renew. You know
Mm.
what I mean? Which look,
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to say it, and I know there's a lot of people who probably might not agree with me, or I remember back when all this started, like everybody's like, oh, dude, it should just be a free market and survival of the fittest and all the rest of that stuff. And it's just like, there's a point where there's too many licenses. Like there just is, and it's like, it's not healthy for the market. And the people who win are the dispensary owners, and the people who lose are the cultivators and the end consumers. So it's like, it's really fucked up because the people in the dispensaries are the ones that are really making the money. You know what I mean? Because they're
Yeah.
buying pounds for next to nothing, or else again, you have a company that's going out of business. So they're going to sit here and go sell pounds for like $400 or $500 because they're like, I have 1,000 pounds and $400 is better than no bucks. You know what I mean? And so then you have dispensaries that are staying in business that have to compete with that. But these people are going out and they're buying up like 30 pounds. So that way they can just sit on it and dole it out over time. So it's just, it's made for a really challenging market. It just has. And like, if you were to liken it to like liquor sales in most states, there's a limited number of liquor licenses. There just is, man. You know what
Mhm.
I mean? And you don't have to agree with me, but that's the way to make things still be worth money. I always tell people nowadays, like, don't build 1,000 light grow. Don't do it. Build like a 300 light grow and just grow absolute fucking heat. We do, dude, nationally, we do $30 billion a year in sales. 30 billion. That's just on the legal market. We probably do the same amount in the black market. So
Are you?
we do.
I feel like depending on where your state, we do less in certain states, because I do know that there's people that were more than willing to like pay that price, like dirt price, for some fucking a decent amount of weed, versus paying like a reasonable fucking price for some actual good weed. You know what I mean?
Sure. But that number just shifts. Like Colorado's not doing 2 billion anymore; they're doing 1 billion. But now it's just shifted to other states, in which
Yeah, I
30,
feel
30
it.
billion a year nationally is pretty robust. If 3% of that is like super high end product, there's a place for us. You know what I mean? I can find my home in 3% of $30 billion, of 50 billion, really. And when you're on the East Coast, like that black market game in New York City, bro, it's fucking wild, man. They're out there charging $120 for 2 gram buckets, and it's wild. It is absolutely wild.
Yeah, no, there's definitely like I know New Mexico, they still have some crazy ass prices out there. Like the
Mm-hmm.
street, the people 100% pay the outrageous price for some homegrown versus something that's out of the dispos right now, and at least in New Mexico. Yeah.
I support the home grower. I support everybody. I think there's people just like anything else. People want to drink Coors Light. there's people who want to drink Pliny the Elder, man. You know what I mean? Like, and they're not the same people. That's fine. You got your customers, I got mine. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What inspired you to start the Jug Dealers podcast? And what do you hope listeners will take away from it?
What inspired us to start the Jug Dealers podcast is the fact that from 2017 through like 2022, I operated large scale commercial facilities. We're talking anywhere from like 300 to like 2,000 lights. You know what I mean? So like, and as other, I'm not going to name names, but as other nutrient companies started to come online in that time and kind of dumb down cultivation, I started seeing there are so many times where they would take a guy like me and like, dude, I've been doing this since 1996. I've done a ton of shit. I got second place in the Cannabis Cup in 2017 or 16. But it's like, they wanted guys like me to go train my replacement so they could fire me and then pay that guy half of what they pay me.
Yeah.
And the reality is, like, I think that cannabis should be treated like a trade, like anything else, man. I think that the really top end guys should be paid well. I think, the reality is your highest cost in cultivation is labor. You know what I mean? So my goal has always been to educate the labor so that they're harder to fire. You know what I mean? Because I just think that's the most important thing, to have it so people understand, when they come to me and they go, this plant is phosphorus deficient. And I go, no, pH down is phosphoric acid. There's phosphorus in your nutrients. I'll bet you dollars to donuts it's a pH issue. You know what I mean? And teaching people that so that they understand that was really that was the precipice of the episode, is that we wanted to have an episode. We wanted to have shows where people would, and in answer to your second question, we want to produce shows where people walk away from the show and they go, I didn't know that before these guys told me. One of the big things that really always bothered me is just that people don't know what elements do in the plants. So that's where we started. We started with episode on, and they don't know where they come from. They don't know anything about them. They don't understand that phosphorus, and calcium are part of the cells, and that ultimately that's what's going to bring a lot of flavor to the flower. So phosphorus is a mined product. You know what I mean? So what was happening in the earth or on the earth at the time when this stuff was mined or this stuff was formed influences the overall end product. Like I say to folks, just like grass-fed beef and corn-fed beef taste different. So that was the biggest reason we started the episode, was just because I didn't really feel like there were any podcasts that really covered that. I think there were some cool ones that had some interviews, and stuff like that, but I didn't really think there was any ones that covered that. And then the other thing was, I really wanted to tell the stories. We got Kind Bill, we got Fletcher on there, we got Scott Reach on there. Like, there are some of those old school stories, especially we're kind of Colorado centric because we're based in Colorado, but like, and everyone looks to California, and California has done an amazing amount of things over the last 50, 60 years in cannabis. I'm not going to take anything away from those guys, but the reality is Colorado has been doing, Western Slope, outside of Boulder and some of those canyons out in Bailey. There's been some really significant things that people have done in cannabis here in Colorado. And so I definitely wanted to highlight that because I think it's important. I think, I've hired so many kids who are, in their 20s and don't know anything about being arrested for weed and never will. And God bless them, because that's one of the biggest reasons I voted for it, because I'm sick of seeing people in jail. If you've ever been in bracelets and spent time, in a cell, whether it's a day or whether it's, 10 years, that's not anything that's fun. So, that's the biggest thing is I wanted to share those stories from people with some of that younger generation so that they know, so that they understand, man. Like we had Jake Greba on and he's telling us stories about his dad getting seeds from Afghanistan, in the 70s, early 70s, as he's working there after Vietnam. Dude, that's where our modern day genetics come from. So I don't want people to forget that. So those are the big things that we hope to bring to our listeners.
Fuck yeah, dude. Passing on the knowledge to the next guy, and not in the like the sense of like what you were just saying, like, well, shit, no, literally in that sense, literally,
Yep.
like passing on that information to train the next guys, so the next guys, don't forget and actually like learn from their shit. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
I
I mean,
love
look, there's it's I've taught so many people. I always tell people, I do consulting and stuff, and I tell people, bring me in. I'll teach everybody in your grow every single thing I know.
hell yeah.
Because all you can do is make people better. It's never like I'm not, when I go to consult, I'm not coming for anybody's job. I'm not. I just want to make better growers. I just want more people. To really understand the plant, to have that relationship with the plant, because I think it is so important. And I think people just, they overlook it. They overlook that relationship with the plant. Like you were saying earlier, they look at it as a commodity and it's so much more than a commodity. That plant,
Yes.
there was a time in my life, I told you I did some fish tour and
Fish.
I've done an embarrassing amount of fish tour, we'll say. But there was a point in my life where I had dreadlocks for like 6 years, of course, like surprise, surprise. But I really researched into Rastafarianism because I wanted to believe, in which I'll never say I was a Rasta because there's things I don't believe. But one of the biggest things that the Rastas believe is that the plant is here to bring humanity together. That they believe that that's what cannabis is on the planet for. And there's something like incredibly true about that, I mean, and so I always tell people like, I'm a steward for the plant. Like the plant doesn't have words. It can't say what it's thinking. So like, I've always been about just like sharing it and sharing the knowledge and like uplifting people, because that's what the plant does for me. The plant's given me almost everything I have in my life, my home, my motorcycle, my ability to travel, all these different things. So to be
The
able to
plant provides, man. The plant provides.
God, that's what the Rastas say. Jah
Hell
God,
yeah.
Jah provide, you know what I mean? And so that shit is important. So, and it's tough because we've seen the plant get really bastardized in the last 5 years, especially.
Yes.
So it's really hard to stay true. But I think that's another part of us doing the show is like Jayhawk and I stay true. That is for sure, man. There's no, we speak our minds. We're not afraid to sugarcoat it. So.
Hell yeah. I fuck with that though, because it's so fucking true. Literally, like you have lawyers, you have doctors, you have teachers, you have fighters, you have literally you name it. We all smoke weed, man, and it brings us all together. Like it's not like drinking, because like drinking, it does bring some to people together, but like go to a bar and stuff, you kind of stay with your group, right? But when you get weed involved, man, people are more than willing to walk up to you like, hey man, you should try this. You know what I mean? You don't see that at a bar, like a real bar where
Dude, I smoke a decent amount of hash, and I climb mountains. I've worked out 800 and almost 90 days in a row right now.
hell yeah.
And so and part of that is like the goal to like prove people wrong, dude. To be like, hey man, stick your stereotypes where the sun doesn't shine, dude. Like I know people, I got a really good friend of mine who's a physician, and he actually grew cannabis through med school to like help start paying off med school. And like,
Mm-hmm.
dude, I mean, it's just, I really hope that this administration can get something figured out so that we can really start moving forward and kind of learning what this plant can really do for us. But the reality is, if you did any other drug the way I smoke hash and cannabis, I'd be dead. Like
Yeah,
if I drank, if I
yeah, dude.
drank the way that I smoke hash, I'd be dead. And the reality is, I still go climb these mountains. I still go do all this shit. And quite frankly, I think it makes me better at those things. You know,
Oh yeah.
our bodies have cannabinoid receptors for a reason. You know.
I always felt it as like a better way to unwind and understand your day. You know what I mean?
100%,
Yeah.
100%, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, like at the end of the day, I don't really want to just get drunk or something and like try to forget about the day because then you just feel all weird and shitty. But at the end of the day, you smoke like a bong, smoke a joint, you know, it makes you sit there and like gives you that like self-reflection, like, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't be worried about this. Maybe, you know, maybe I shouldn't trip out. Life's pretty good. Hell yeah. You know, type shit.
Yeah, and the reality is, alcohol is poison.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Like you're literally poisoning yourself. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, smoking all isn't all that good either, but it's a lot better than fucking poisoning yourself.
I don't disagree, and that's one of my honestly, that's one of my big arguments when I talk about legalization with folks, is because I'm like, look, dude, for you to think the government's going to legalize something for us to smoke, you're out of your fucking mind. Like you're just out of your mind. In which, so that was, you know, I told you I've worked in a bunch of different legal markets and stuff like that. In which, depending on the market you're in, hold on a second, because this is a big one. I'm going to take a dab real quick.
Yo, good. Oh, well, what do you, hold on, real quick before we run too far away from it. Well, alcohol is poison, right? But there is certain alcohols like tequila that like they're 100% like there's been tests and everything in moderation, and like literally moderation is the key with that certain type of alcohol. It is actually good for you. It helps wake you up, helps you sleep better, certain things.
Look,
But
mushrooms are poison. They're good for you too. You know, it's more of the excess of it, and I would agree with that. You know, I
yeah,
mean, you know, I think everything should be in moderation. You know what I mean? You know, and there's a reason you feel altered effects from putting anything in your body. I did bufo
yeah.
earlier this year, and it was like I saw Jesus. You know?
Hell yeah, hell yeah.
Oh, the one I was gonna say, the one thing I was gonna say though is, depending on the state you're in, that will depend who's regulating the cannabis commission. So, like here in Colorado, it's Department of Revenue. All they care about is taxes and stealing. In Pennsylvania, it's the Department of Health. So, the Department of Health cares about people getting sick and people getting too high. So, the regulations they come up with in those markets all of a sudden become vastly different.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that was one of the things I was going to point out, is just that there's no consistency from market to market. You know, you could have Illinois has 1,000 CFU for colony forming units on cannabis for mold and mildew. And then let's say a state like Michigan has 100,000, you know, in which, just to put that in perspective for anybody watching, like CFU limits on your lettuce are like 50,000. You know what I mean? So like you can go look up with the USDA, the Department of Agriculture, what those thresholds are. And a lot of the thresholds you see on cannabis are way more strict and stringent than they are on food. So I think, you know, you hear like 10,000 CFU and you're like, holy shit, that sounds like a lot, you know?
Yeah.
But again, realistically on lettuce, it's like 50. So I think you're allowed like 50 aphids on a head of lettuce. It's wild. There's all kinds of stuff that's allowed on food where the cannabis regulations are way stricter. So
Yeah, I do know. I definitely hear what you're saying. There's not a standard, like an actual standard across the board. Everybody's really just kind of doing their own fucking thing, right? And just trying to figure it out.
and like I said, we'll see if they figure it out nationally. I'm pretty keen to point out, and I've said it on my podcast. Trump didn't do anything the last time he was in, so why we think he would do anything this time, I'm not. You know, they just canceled those DEA hearings and stuff. So I mean, Who the fuck knows?
Go wait and find out. I'm not holding my breath.
Neither am I. I'll be here.
Uh, all right. So let's get a little bit into cultivation and techniques. Do you have a specific philosophy? Oh, well, you already kind of answered that. Shit.
I mean, really, it's whatever. Honestly, I think it's whatever you want to do. Like, it's whatever. I think it's whatever makes you happy. The reality is, I like growing in cocoa. I like growing in 5-gallon buckets. At home, I'll be honest with you, I prefer hand watering. I just like it. You know what I mean?
More in tune with the plant.
Yeah, and it just you know what? It ensures that I'm going to go down there and spend 45 minutes every fucking day. One of the things I like about that is, like, I used to, when I run big commercial facilities, I'm kind of like, I tell people every plant every day. Every plant every day. Like, every plant deserves at least 5 seconds of your time every day. And that's touch time. That's you just touching it, moving it, shuffle it, pick it up, do whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But I think that's really important. There's a book called Secret Life of Plants, and they basically talk about how plants are sentient and they can read your energy. And I think that's really important because, your energy transfers to your garden. So one of my big philosophies is, like, I used to tell my guys all the time, man, like, whatever your problem is, if your girlfriend's fighting with you, your dog died or whatever, man, leave that shit in the car, man, because this is your time to, like, just kind of let it all flow and be in the garden and be with the plants and, let them know that, like, hey, I'm here to take care of you girls and make it good. So, I mean, in that respect, it's like, I think that's one of my biggest things is just be present in the garden, put the time in, don't use the simplest nutrients so you can get out of there as soon as possible. Take the time to really, enjoy your time in your garden, because you'll see the finished product, and not for nothing. I guarantee they feel your energy. You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah. No, there's been studies and all that. Like, if you go into your grow and you start just being like, "You're an ugly piece of shit," like, every day, then plants will start. Even if you're giving it all of the water and, like, just keep dissing it and, like, giving it that negative energy, and it will start reflecting.
Dude, funny story. I used to when I ran big facilities, man, I used to joke with my guys, and I used to say, like, I would cut more clones than I needed, and I would grow and kind of call plants out as I go along. And I would tell my guys, I would be like, hey, when you're going to kill a plant, hold it up in front of all the other plants and go, this is what happens when you don't perform. What happens? I go and I tell my buddy this story, and he's like, you shouldn't do that, dude. And I was like, why, dude? I was like, the other plants know that if they don't perform, that it's going to be a bad situation. And he's like, have you ever read Secret Life of Plants? And I'm like, no. And he gives me the book, and, like, there's a story in the book where, preface it with, basically, this guy just hooked up a lie detector to some plants, and he yelled at them, and they reacted. And so he was like, he started doing more research, and he put this theory out there, and this university went, and they basically set up a room with all these plants. They set it up where the lie detector was hooked up to all the plants. And then they had 14 different people go into the room, all one at a time. And one person went in and killed a plant violently in front of all the other plants. He was like, fuck you, plant. And then they sent the people back in the room afterwards. And when the guy who killed the plant went into the room, all the plants started freaking out. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, that's the craziest story I've ever heard. And now I feel awful for having killed all those plants in front of them. So now I swear to God, now if I'm going to kill plants, I take them out of the room and I go kill them in the other room so the other plants.
Yeah, dude. That's wild. I love it.
Isn't that funny, though? Because it's like, it really is like, Like you gotta form a relationship with them. And I think when you form a relationship with them, you grow better weed. You just do. You just do, and you let them know, just like the Native Americans used to kind of do. Hey, man, thank you, thank you for serving me. Thank you for being a plant that helps me. And I think when you put that energy into your garden, you'll see like a massive difference. You know what I mean? They will reward you. So,
100%, 100%. No, I've when I started growing from the couple times that I work, what was it? The fuck was his name? There's a guy who taught me a couple things as soon as I started working in like the commercial side and shit. But he always told me never kill the plants in the same room because they see that shit and then they don't understand a lot of the shit, but they understand the energy. And you killing something is going to put them in some sort of shock and shit. So you should always, even like cutting clones and stuff. If you're going to cut clones, take that mom, bring it to a different room, trim it up, wait for her to get a little bit back, and then bring her back into that room. Like okay, but I've never heard anything about it until that book came out. Like I always thought that was crazy.
It's totally. They were saying there's a story in that book where they were talking about how they used to wire the trees in Vietnam, and when the enemy would come through the forest, the trees would start making a signal, and that's how they knew that the Viet Cong was coming. Is the trees would actually start sending signals. So there's so much more to it. Jaron and I talk about it all the time about how there's just, I think that's one of the best things I've enjoyed from the show is that when I put, because I spend a decent amount of time doing research and writing some of those element episodes and some of those, even if I know the stuff, I still want to be on point with it. And so there's always stuff that I learn as well. And I think that's one of the things I've most enjoyed about doing the podcast is just, learning as much as possible. I mean, that I always joke with people who throw around that term master grower. I mean, dude, I'm on 29 years now. I've grown for 29 years and there's still so much I have to learn. The plant still has so much to teach all of us. We're at our infancy, so
I blame really the beginning of like the whole industrial cultivation game because that's when like they were hiring people as master growers and shit. It wasn't you were the head grower or or lead cultivationist. It wasn't that you were the master grower. So like I remember
I never took that title. I always called myself either cultivation manager or cultivation director. You know what I mean? There was a point where I was running a facility in Maryland and Pennsylvania. So I had to go back and forth between the two buildings and we're doing construction on the one. So plants are the master growers. They really are. So as Jayhawk likes to say, we're plant janitors.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Our job is to keep the pH right and keep things consistent and make sure that, Jayhawk and I always talk about the grower's pyramid, and we always say how it's lighting, environment, genetics, cultivator, and down at the bottom is nutrients, and I'm not saying nutrients isn't important, but realistically, nothing overrides anything above it. So if you have a bad environment and bad lighting, guess what? The best genetics in the world, just not going to perform. If you have a great environment and great lighting and great genetics, you can have a mediocre grower do a pretty fucking good job. You know what I mean? He's already, he's a coach and you already set him up with Kobe and Shaq and, they're fed well. And so it's just,
they win.
And not for nothing. That's where the market's gone in the last 5 years. And that's why you don't see people growing the ChemDs and the OGs and the Girl Scout cookies and the hazes and shit like that. Because it's fucking hard. It's hard to grow and you actually got to know what the fuck you're doing. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes. I'm sorry. Thank you. I've said, I was in an argument with somebody and I don't know if they're in chat, but thank you.
True, man. I mean, that's why people don't grow. They grow the easy shit.
Yeah.
Grow easy shit that makes you money, that is cheap to grow, that finishes in 56 days, that washes, like, you know, there's a bunch of boxes that people have come up with, and, you know, there's a bunch of weed that people are growing that fits in that box. And then there's guys like you and me that don't really give a fuck about that and grow what we think is relevant, you know?
Yeah, it's good shit. So, indoor out or versus outdoor. How do you um shit. I worded that wrong. I don't like that. We'll just say it, fuck it. Indoor versus outdoor.
Um, Here's what I'll say. Some of the best weed I've ever smoked in my life was Light Dep, harvested in late July from Grass Valley, California, OG Kush. The reason I say that is cover pulls at 7 a.m. There's no sunrise, like the sun is up. Cover pulls at 7 p.m. There's no sunset, so it's getting full sun. You know, the full sun is like what, 3,500 micromoles, so it's getting everything. And then, you know, I'm a big believer in terroir, as far as just like Napa is really good for wines. I feel like there's certain places in the United States, Humboldt, Grass Valley, Paonia, you know, Floyd, Virginia. You know, there's all these different places that are really good for growing cannabis because of their microclimates and the way the sun hits it and all these different things. So in that respect, I love outdoor. Now, that being said, most of the outdoor you're getting is not that. You know, I do think that for hash, it definitely presents a nice complexity that you don't get from indoor because of the limited light spectrum. But that being said, indoor weed is sexy. You know, indoor weed, you have control over so many more parameters. So, I mean, I like them both. I think, you know, for me and for what I do, it's definitely indoor, 5-gallon pots, cocoa, auto feed. You know, I'm very used to that system. I run it quite well. But for the dudes who do outdoor and do it well, I think it's some of the best flower as far as taste. You know what I mean? I think that's where people kind of get confused, because we're in a society right now where it's so like, oh, it's shiny, man. Like, that's the weed. And like, shiny doesn't mean shit, dude. It really doesn't, man. You know, like I drove a Ferrari. It sucked. You know what I mean? Like, it was so disappointing, dude. Like, and I've driven a lot. I've driven Porsches and Lambos and stuff. The Ferrari was the most disappointing. And that, yeah, I think the thing that sucked the most about it was like, that was the car I wanted the most as a kid. Like, I was like, oh, Ferrari, it's the one. And then you get in and you're like, wah, wah. You know what I mean? So like,
Yeah,
I think that's something where, like, you know, you go and look in the Maryland market and like all they give a fuck about is THC. And like, dude, we just went and tested 6 strains in Maryland. The lowest testing one was like this what was it? It was sherbet cream pie, and fucking like 21%, but like 4% terps. Like, by far, probably some of the tastiest herb I smoked last year. Lowest numbers on THC. You know, and that's one of those things that really bothers me about the market just in general nowadays, is that it's so THC driven. So I'm really hoping a lot of that changes in the next 5-10 years, where people go back to what's delicious, you know, because that's why I smoke. I smoke for flavor. I could give a fuck.
stop chasing that THC number. Yeah. Sorry, excuse me. Yeah, no. I've had plenty of fucking weed that like literally that put your dick in the dirt type shit, that one hitter quitter, that shit like, oh my God, this is that thing that killed John Wayne type shit. That's literally not testing high, like them high numbers. It's like in the 15s.
Dude, hazes are like 17%. They'll have you peering out your fucking curtains, you know?
Yeah, dude. Paranoid motherfucker.
Well, we did that episode. We did that episode on terpenes and flavonoids and stuff, and like, that's what really modulates the high. You know what I mean? That's what really dictates the effect. It's not the fucking cannabinoids. So like people just need to get over that shit, dude. Go
That,
shop on terps, dude. You
dude,
know?
that fucking entourage effect.
It's a
Everything coexists. Everything works together, man.
yep.
Like,
It's not we're not making it up. It's real, you know?
100%. Hell yeah. So, what about automated growing? How do you feel about automation and technology in cultivation? Oh, excuse me. Sorry.
I love it. You know, I was saying how I hand water at home, and that's like purely what I do at home. I'm not even anti automation at home. It's just something I haven't like if I'm gonna do it, I want to do it right. I
Mhm.
don't want to do it. I don't want to do it ghetto. But the reality is, um, you know, we helped develop a lot of that stuff in cannabis. You know, I was working with GrowLink and Anderson when they got together. You know, there's a lot of things going back to what I was saying earlier about how I feel like cannabis should be more of a trade and labor is our highest cost. Reality is there should be as much automation as possible. Now I don't believe that in the trim. You know, I think trim still I think if you do it right, you know, you're basically harvesting your A buds from the top. They go to the trimmers. It makes it easy on them. You can see trimmers do anywhere from 2 to 6 pounds a fucking day. I've seen it. And then all the lowers just go to hash. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so people are just getting A buds. You know, maybe some of the lowers go to joints and stuff like that. But if you can really automate the irrigation, automate, you know, there's buildings I've seen where um they'll put it on a bench and veg, and then that bench will just move throughout the building. You know what I mean? Like it once it's on the bench, it stays on the bench.
Yep.
Dude, we saw a place in Florida where when they harvest, the benches leave the room, right? And then it pulls right up to a refrigerated room and they just fucking harvest it in a refrigerated room, dude. You know what I mean? Like it's all
That I
yeah,
ain't gonna lie. That'd be crazy.
bro, it's just shit, dude. And for
Oh,
hash,
straight
like,
to it.
yup, they cool the hallways and shit. For hash, they're literally like they turn the lights off the day before, they cool the room the day before, they cool the hallways, then into a chiller right in there, dude. And it's just like, man, talk about saving all the terps and like doing it
Yeah.
really efficiently and making it so that your guys are literally like in the fridge, cutting it, putting it right in, like from there to there to there to there. I think all those efficiencies, and like we actually just did a big trip to Holland where we were looking at buildings for tomatoes and stuff like that that were hundreds of hectares, which is like hundreds and so 1 hectare is 2 acres.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and you're just, and I think the more that we can implore, and I'm not saying you have to grow these giant buildings. I'm just saying that imploring these processes really increases efficiency and really is going to make it so that you're growing the best possible flower.
Hell yeah.
And
Hell
then,
yeah.
like I said, then your guys, then you, because one thing I always preach to people is like, you know, it's hard because you're trying to hire like, you know, if you're lucky in some states I see like $15 an hour guys, but like hiring an $18-20 an hour guy in the garden, like that guy's only going to care $20 an hour worth. You know what I mean? Like he's going to be like, fuck these guys. Whereas if you have less guys and you're paying them like 35-40 an hour, those dudes are going to be like, man, I really care about my fucking job. I know it doesn't sound like much, but
It is.
it
Yeah.
is. It really is, man. And I think that's one of the biggest problems in the industry is that, you know, they've dumbed it down and tried to cheapen labor so much that like, and treat it like other commodities that it's like, this is not like, even when we're getting $500 a pound or $300 a pound, that's still like the margins on tomatoes are 10 cents a fucking pound. 10 cents a pound. So like our margins are still way bigger than most other ag industries. You know what I mean? So people
Yeah.
need to look at it like that as well. You know?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. All right. Let's talk some global trends. How do you see the the global cannabis market evolving, and what lessons can local growers take from the international trends?
I mean, seeing what's happening in Canada, South Africa, Germany, Thailand, um, it's pretty interesting. I mean, I was in Thailand 25 years ago, and like, man, you got in trouble in Thailand 25 years ago. You were doing some serious time. And to see how open it is now, because of NATO, because of certain treaties we have, we're not allowed to export cannabis. So the reality is, like, we're kind of behind the game as far as everybody else, because a lot of the cannabis you see now, I'm not going to say you don't see gray market, black market cannabis in Amsterdam and in Germany and some of those places. But the reality is, like, a lot of that cannabis comes from like Canada. You know what I mean? It comes from, I know when I talk to my buddy in Thailand, he talks about Vietnam and Laos legalizing, and how, part of the plan is to have Thailand kind of supply some of those places. I mean, reality is, you're never going to see the Muslim countries change. And I'm not trying to be any type of way, but they just don't like drugs and alcohol. So if it's like the Philippines, like, it's not going to change. No laws are going to change, same thing in India. I don't think, same thing in China. Like, laws are not going to change with Japan's laws are not going to change when it comes to cannabis in those countries. But in a lot of these other countries, again, I think in Europe, I think in some African places, I think, I'd love to be able to see it where you could just travel. Mexico's pretty cool nowadays. Obviously Canada is, but, I think we definitely have some work to do if we're going to catch up with the rest of the world as far as how progressive, like the facilities that Jaron's visited in South Africa, they're all GMP facilities. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So that's GMP for anybody who's watching. That means good manufacturing practices. So basically there's a list that they have where it's buildings got to have epoxy floors and plastic walls and washable surfaces and this type of HVAC and HEPA filters. But it's a huge list. But as long as you adhere to that list, then and when you get these certifications, it makes it way easier for you to be able to sell things in other countries around the world. Again, there's like ISO 9001, ISO 9002. And again, it's just a list of all these certifications. So, and we're not near that yet. In Maryland, there's one GMP facility. That's one thing I've always, when I consult for folks, one thing I'm pretty keen to be about, and a lot of people aren't, is if we go legal, they're going to have FDA / Department of Ag specifications for all our buildings. And I think that's going to be a big way that they shut down a lot of facilities, is they're just going to come out and they're going to say, hey, everybody's buildings need to be built to these specs. And if they're not, you have 6 months to get it up to spec, or you have to shut down. And people are going to go start looking at their buildings, and they're going to hire people like me to come tell them what's wrong. And then it's going to be like, well, this is going to be $400,000. And it's simple shit like air showers, air curtains. One that I point out to people all the time is 6-inch cove base. So that the floor trim at the bottom of your floor, where the wall and the floor meet, that's got to be 6 inches high. And then realistically, the floor needs to be epoxied and rolled up on it.
Yeah, I'm about to say you gotta have that roll.
Yeah, so that way they can spray it down, and it's all washable surfaces. FRP on the walls. And most people that, when they were trying to build these buildings cheap, they're like, oh, I'm not doing any of that shit.
Nope.
You know what I mean? So,
people would drop. Companies would drop like fucking flies. If we had that and we told them, like you were saying, drop like fucking flies.
It's not they would. They will. It's gonna happen. Like, it's gonna happen. I promise you, it's gonna happen. That shoe is still to drop, and I guarantee you, price of cannabis goes back up when it happens.
Yeah, because not everybody will want to be in the game, because it's like,
it's going to cost you too much money to retrofit your building, dude, and people are not ready for that shit. But it's real. And so that's where I think we stand when it comes to the global marketplace is like, and then again, Colombia is coming online. These are all places that can do it for much cheaper. So, I mean, I think we're in for somewhat of an awakening when it comes to the global economy. Now, that being said, I think when federal legalization happens, I think having a sticker on your cannabis that says grown in California, grown in Michigan, grown in Colorado will probably have some value in certain places around the world, because just like I was talking about the terroir, Humboldt grown could be a cool thing for some people. Oh, I want some Humboldt grown sour diesel, and I think I was just over at a friend's house and they had Gorilla Glue live resin from two different harvests, and they were both unbelievable, but they were different.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things like when I did the Clementine challenge, which was I basically I gave 6 different extraction teams 2,000 grams a piece, and then I had them turn it back in, and I made flights, and I had my customers judge the flights. Okay. So, but the goal in that was to prove that different extractors will do different things. I really wanted to prove or disprove the whole term, extract artist. Because it's not just guys turning dials. It's guys understanding the product and, doing different, different washes for different amounts of time at different temperatures. All that makes a difference in the end product. And ironically enough, I gave that product to one company that was CO2, and they were the one that was actually closest to the live plant profile. So I gave the 2,000 grams to 6 teams, and then I took a sample of bud and I sent it to the lab and had the lab test it. And the idea behind the contest was I wanted to see how it matched up to the live flower, because that, in my mind, is live resin by definition, right?
Yeah, dude.
How close is it to the live fucking plant? I don't give a shit. Like, sure, it tastes cool, but how close is it to the actual living plant? So that was my goal, was to see which one lined up with the live plant the most. And what shocked people the most was it was the fucking CO2. Everybody was like, fuck.
Goddamn, dude.
The sample from Incredibles, as far as live resins BHO extract, was actually closest. I think it was Incredibles, Green Dot, and then CRX. They were all the ones. And then, not for nothing, the guys at Harmony actually won the competition, and theirs was the least like the actual flower, but it was also the first time that anybody presented diamonds in a legal marketplace. This was probably May of 2017. So it was, but it was cool because, again, my selfish part of it was I want to prove that extract artists are artists. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. You got to know what you're doing. 100%.
Yeah. It's not just turning dials and reading temperatures, same thing with hash. Nick T's a good friend of mine, and I'll tell you what, I don't know what kind of fairy dust he sprinkles in his fucking hash, but the reality is he makes better hash than most people I know. He really does. Like, the way he does it, his understanding of how the trichomes move, if you ever take the time to look at your trikes under a microscope, they're different sizes, they're different shapes, and understanding how they flow through the bags. There's not a lot of people who know that. They just haven't had the enough exposure. You know what I mean? A lot of that's just exposure.
Got your fucking sticks. You got your sticks and balls, and then you got your straight balls.
Yep. And some are teardrop shaped.
Yeah.
Some aren't even round or bulbous. Some are teardrop shaped. You look at the OG Kush, and they're smaller heads, but there's tons of them.
Yep. Just condensed this shit, dude.
Yep.
Yep. I saw a question in chat real quick. Where'd it go? Kevin, what's the best way here? Bam. What's the best way to automate irrigation?
If you're at home, Trollmaster, straight up. It's fucking awesome.
Trollmaster.
Yeah, it literally, if you're at home, it's foolproof. Trollmaster is awesome. If you're in a commercial facility, I really like GrowLink, but there's a lot of different controllers. There's Rhythm, there's Wadsworth, there's Priva, there's Argus. It really just depends on how much money you want to spend. But for the home grow, Trollmaster is like, it's really just awesome equipment. They have really good support. Depending on how much money you want to spend, you know the lower end equipment works great, and then if you go and get the Hydro X with the it's kind of like an iPad tablet, it's freaking awesome. So yeah, I mean, they've made it a lot easier for the normal person to be able to do these things. And then honestly, just get regular irrigation line, Netafim. You can actually go online and buy the whips, where you can have an emitter, a line. You can dictate how long you want the line. If you want it 18 inches, 24 inches, and then whatever size emitter you want. I like to go with 2 and 3 gallon emitters just because I'm usually running the nutrient brand I work for, New Millennium, and it's definitely a little thicker than some of the other lines, but I like all the biostimulants and kind of the extra stuff it comes with. But if you're running a cleaner formula, you can definitely get away with like a gallon. I don't like anything smaller than that, just because I find they can clog. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Hell yeah. So I know we're running a little bit past the hour mark.
I'll go as long as you want, bro. I don't give a fuck.
Too easy, brother. Too easy. So you just mentioned New Millennium, and I have a couple questions.
Sure.
What makes your product line stand out in the market, and how do you approach the development process?
Well, most of the New Millennium's been developed. Those guys between Jern and Neil and those guys. So for people who understand, Neil was one of the head chemists at General Hydro for from the 70s. There was 3 main chemists. He was one of those guys. Neil worked for General Hydro for like 20 years. Eventually broke off from those guys to start Millennium and consequently New Millennium. Really what New Millennium is it's a collection of everything that Neil's ever wanted to do the way he wanted to do it. Neil believes that we're over fertilizing the planet, so like most of the things that we have are, most of them are 5 to 10 mils a gallon. One of the bases you'll run as high as like 21 mils a gallon, but most of our stuff is really concentrated. And then we're kind of focused. I use the bases. They're awesome. Reality is they're too dirty for a lot of folks, and I get that. But they work. One of the reasons they're actually a little bit grimier is just because of the amount of colloidal clay we put in there. And the colloidal clay basically adds negatively charged ions to the soil to help attract those positive ions that the plant's putting out, to basically increase the cation exchange capacity, which means there's more capacity to hold nutrients and to make them available to the plant. So that's something that's like a little secret weapon that we use in there, where people are like, oh man, it's not my clear nutrient. It's like, guess what? Dirt's not clear. You know what I mean? Like, so that's one of the things. And then we really stand behind, I want my cannabis cup with Canna, man. I got friends who work at Athena. I got friends who work at Cutting Edge. Like, those guys are all the homies. So we really stand on our additives and some of the unique characteristics of them, as far as like the decision, which I talked about, which basically decreases the stretch on plants, and it really helps flower set happen sooner, in which there's no other product on the market that does anything like that. It actually sequesters the nitrogen so that the plants are really just focused on starting flowering. So instead of flowering at day 12, they'll be flowering at day 8, and basically through doing that, not only are you building a bigger flower set, but you're also shortening that flower time as well. Our fulvic acid, that's one of the big ones. It's a 9 different source fulvic extraction. So most fulvics you're going to see on the market are a single source. Ours, which basically it comes from a layer in the coal bed. Coal is basically carbon, so it comes from a layer in the coal bed which is too soft to burn. It's not hard enough to actually be coal, so they fraction that stuff off and they actually make like a liquid out of it, and that's where humic and fulvic acid comes from. Fulvic's actually the smaller particle in the humic acid. So and basically those are hydrogen, carbon, and oxygen. And plants are 45% hydrogen, 45% carbon. So like giving your plant more hydrogen and carbon, it's really just going to help it out. Again, same thing like I was saying about the phosphorus earlier. Carbon, whatever plant decay was going, whatever plants were going on and dinosaurs were going on in that part, it's going to influence how it tastes, so it's going to give it that overall kind of influence and flavor. We have a carbonaria, which is 20 different plant extracted sugars. It's really out there to just replace molasses because, like I say to folks, plants have to go through a lot of work to break molasses down and make it available for your plants. Like there's extra steps involved. Whereas the carbonaria basically is 20 different plant extracted sugars. They go through a fermentation process, which is much like the bokashi method. So it's a 5-day fermentation. We make that stuff like once a month. We can only make 3,000 gallons at a time because it takes so long, ties the equipment up for a week basically. But it's feeding microbes, it's feeding bacteria, it's feeding fungi, which we really believe, we're kind of in the philosophy. You see certain people out there, I'm not going to name any names, but you see certain people out there who are like living soil or die, fuck synthetics, you know what I mean? And it's like, no, like we can all work in harmony. I don't really believe in using hypochlorous acid, but the reality is you can use synthetic elements and put, bacillus and mycorrhiza and glomus and all that stuff in your soil, and the carbonaria will actually feed that stuff and make them more vigorous and make them more active, which is just going to make your plants more vigorous. And then finally, our big one is the winter frost. That's our gateway jug, in which it's a bookend to the decision. So whereas the decision gets your plants going, winter frost kind of finishes them off. It triggers senescence, triggers that color, triggers the frost, triggers the odors and stuff like that, all the flavonoids and terpenes. And that's really that's why we call ourselves the Jug Dealers. It's funny. We were sitting around trying to think of the name for the podcast, and my buddy Brandon turns to us and he goes, "Dude, you guys are jug dealers, man. Why don't you just go with that?" And we're just like, "Dude, we are jug dealers, dude." So that's really the thing for us. If you go to our site, 58 or newmillennium.com, you can see all our products. We have like a silica up there. We have a bunch of other different, everything in there is shit that Neil thinks is special, and it is. So we have a cavalcade of different products for people to, again, if you want to stay on your nutrients, I'm not trying to sway you. If you want to try something cool, I'm happy to help
you. I know I'm down. I know I'm down.
We just want to see people. We just want to see people grow terpy weed.
Oh yeah, I love it. So, are there any cutting edge tools or techniques that you're excited about introducing? Like,
I really like. I've been using the UV fixture from DLI for the last year and a half, 2 years, and it really makes a difference just in the quality of the flower, some of the resinous characteristics of it. We've been using some of these things long enough that we've actually been able to see some testing and see some results and stuff like that. So that's really one of the big things that I'm most psyched about as far as technology and just in general. I think the lighting game in general, I think there's going to be a lot more going down. I think there's going to be a lot more lighting recipes for certain cultivars to really maximize efficiency. So that's really the thing for me. And then, just on a personal level, I always like finding just weird weed.
Yeah.
Stuff that's just total outlier where you're just it's funny because I just got this I think I was saying earlier that ChemD from IROC that he ran for 90 days. And like, my buddy asked me, he's like, what does it smell like? And I was like, it smells like a 1977 Chrysler Cordova, bro. Like, I was like, it's just that leathery couch, like old man's been smoking a pipe, with like wearing like a full leather outfit, so I just like finding weird stuff,
I love it. Oh yeah. We got another question from chat.
Sure. Is there we have pet packs, bro. We have pet packs. If you reach out to me, my email is Gabe at the number 5 and then EIGHT.com. If you just reach out to me and tell me that you asked for it on the Ames High podcast, all we ask is you pay for shipping. And we have a pet pack, and that'll have everything in there for you to try. And you'll have my email. So if you have any questions, you can just reach out and I'll happily answer your questions, bro.
Hell yeah, bro.
But yeah, there is a size for people to try, and all this stuff's available. I'm gonna do the quick plug.
Yeah,
all this stuff's available on jugdealers.net and jugdealers.shop. You guys can go on there and buy the pet packs or whatever. If you listen to the podcast, you can go look at whatever. No, we don't have any skunk. If you want skunk, go to Golden Coast Genetics, dude. That guy, he's a really good friend of mine. The garlic skunk that he sells, he put the word garlic on there so people won't buy it and breed with it. But I'm telling you right now, like, it's the skunkiest thing I've ever grown. So go to Golden Coast Genetics, tell them Gabe sent you, and buy the garlic skunk. That's like the skunkiest weed that is out right now. So I hope that at least answers your question.
Hell yeah. No, that's awesome, man. That's funny as hell. I put oh shit.
Oh yeah, there's my boy. What's up, Dab Marino? That's a good homie of mine from he used to live up in Fort Collins. I think he's down in Mississippi now. Beautiful cane Corso he has, and a beautiful family.
Nice. Hell yeah. Fuck yeah.
No, the Rhizium shouldn't have a chunky substance to it. If it does, send it back. I'll send you a new one. But it should. I mean, maybe it got opened. There is some bioactivity in there, but it should, as long as it doesn't smell bad, it shouldn't fuck your plants up.
Yeah, it's like literally that's a good. Yeah. That funky, weird fucking smell. Like it's a weird. It's not like a fish shit smell. It's like you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Illinois now. Good for you, Dab.
Hell yeah. So, I got some advice and vision. First question, mentorship. What advice would you give to someone looking to turn their passion for cannabis into a career? Wow, I'm struggling. Fucking shit's catching up to me fast. Sorry.
I mean, I would say just stay true. I mean, I think it's one of the hardest things in this industry. And it's like, I used to have a lot of people everybody who comes into the trim department is looking to get out of the trim department. They're like, oh, this is my entry level, I'll get in. It's hard. It's really hard to work through some of these companies. A lot of these companies are just owned by people with a lot of money who don't really care about weed. So like, try and find a place you vibe with. One of the biggest things I tried to do when I was running Grassroots was like create a culture, create a positive environment, so in that respect, I would say like, if you're trying to do it to pay the bills, understand that that's what it's for, and you might not always be happy. If you're trying to do it because it's something you really love, search for the people that you want to work with, man. They're out there, and there's people that love the plant. It's just, you got to align yourself with the right people.
Shit. Hell yeah. Sorry. Oh shit. That applies to a lot of things in life.
It's true.
But yeah. It smells bad. Don't touch it.
Just in general, does it pass the smell test? I mean, and that applies to what we were just talking about. When you go apply for a job and you talk to those people, did they pass the smell test, man? Do they have good vibes? Walk through their garden. Ask, say, hey, can I walk through your garden? Can I see what your garden looks like? Is this a place I want to work? You know what I mean? Don't just take the job because I'll tell you right now, that's the shit that'll burn you out. And that's the shit that'll make you fucking hate it. And then you'll be like, I don't want to do this. You know what I mean? So don't set yourself up for that. Put yourself in a position where you're like, man, I really, it's like playing for the Yankees. I hate to say it, like, man, I really want to play for the Yankees. I really want to work for Snacksland, or I really want to work for Peninsula. You know what I mean? These guys grow the best fucking weed, man. I want to work for these guys. It was, when I was at Peninsula in Michigan, their extract guy, like, dude, you could not find a guy who is more fucking psyched to be there. Same at P-Bud's place down in Florida. Their dry cure guy, man, like, you could not meet a dude who was not more psyched to fucking be there, dude. So try and put yourself in that position. And you're right. Try and put yourself in that position in life. But if you have to be around plants every day, it's like I was telling you earlier about the energy. You want your energy to be good because your plants are going to know. And so if you hate going into that fucking grow, guess what? Those plants are going to be the first one to be like, we're not going to perform for this fucking dickhead.
Yeah, dude. We hate you too, motherfucker. Yeah, I fucking love it. All right. So, what are some of the most impactful ways growers can make their operation more sustainable?
Keep it clean. Like pretty simply, keep it clean. Keep it really, really, really fucking clean. That's, and like I was saying, with the pyramid, make sure your environment, make sure your lighting, make sure they all work hand in hand. If your lighting's all cranked up and you're feeding real hard, but your CO2 is not where it's at, it's not going to work right. If your CO2 is all cranked up and your lighting's all cranked up, but your nutrients all fucked off because your pH is fucked off, guess what? Your plants are going to crash. So it's really about focusing on making sure that all the rest of that stuff is in line. The plants will grow themselves. You just need to make sure that, it's just like a race car. I tell this people all the time, just like a race car, making sure it's got the right tires, making sure the fuel is right, making sure everything else is right, making sure the track conditions are good. Ultimately, I'm just driving the car. You know what I mean? So that's really what you need. And if you're driving on tires that are low in air and your fucking carburetor's all fucked up, and guess what? You ain't going to win the race, and your car's probably going to die on the side of the fucking road. So that's one of the, I used to walk into Scott said it on my podcast, and I've said it for years. You can't teach intuition. Now, that being said, I said that to a friend of mine the other day, and he goes, yeah, but you can teach repetition.
That's true.
He's not wrong there. But every time I walk into a room, I put my hands up. I feel the air. I feel the humidity. Like, people used to walk. I'd walk into a room and people would be like, what's with Rain Man over here?
Fucking Rain Man.
I go in. I rub my feet on the floor because you can feel the humidity when you rub your feet on the floor. I scan the ceiling, make sure all the lights are. But that's how you want to be, regardless of whether you're walking into your own garden or someone else's garden, man. You want to feel that room, dude. You want to go in and you just want to smell it, dude. I had, and I don't mean for weed. I mean for other shit. I had a garden I consulted on, and they were having some problems with their garden. And I go in there, and the first thing I do is I knock off one of the 1 gallon pots, and I go and smell the soil. And the head grower looks at me.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
The head grower looks at me and he goes, what are you doing, dude? And I look at him and I go, you don't do this?
What the fuck?
And he's like, no. And I was like, well, what the fuck are you doing, dude? Like, how do you not do this? But that's something I think is really important, is like, smelling your soil, smelling your room, doing all like that's why you have these senses. And a lot of people you just can't teach that shit to. So that's what I would say is like remember those things, make it a routine, make it so it's muscle memory. Every time you walk in your room, you smell, you scan, you look at the ceiling, you check your humidity levels. If you have one of those Troll Masters and you can log it, you have it logged and stuff like that. So that's the shit that's all super important to being consistent and being good.
I've never smelled the room. I've never done that one. I'll have to try that. That'll probably help. Yeah, no, I've never done that. I do smell the soil. Yeah, I've done that a lot. Always.
Yep.
Yeah, 'cause you can tell a lot if that fucking. Oh wow! Like, and because it has like this. Yeah, dude, it has this like fucking like mildewy like weird fucking smell to it. Like that's not good either. Like no, like all kinds of shit. Like
you always know the nose knows.
oh yeah, oh yeah. So speaking of all of this, what would you say as somebody who deals in nutrients and has been around all the grows, what would you say is the most common nutrients problem that you see when it comes to the home grower?
pH. Like it doesn't like I'll sit here and sell I'll sit here and sell my nutrients all day long based on the quality of the elements. The reality is, the reason you end up having to run element or some lines at 3.0 and 4.0 is because those nutrients are less available, A, because of the quality of the nutrients, and B, because you're using hypochlorous acid to fucking kill to kill all the beneficials and stuff like that. But the reality is Canna, fucking Athena, New Millennium, Front Row, none of them want you to fail. None of them want you to fail. And all the people who work for these frigging companies are engineers and scientists who are way smarter than you and me.
Mm.
The reality is most people fuck up because they're overfeeding, not getting enough runoff, and their pH is probably too low in their fucking soil because
too much love.
Yeah, like I said before, pH down is nobody uses. I mean, sure, you got the living soil guy who uses citric acid, but the reality is citric acid is not strong enough to knock down synthetic nutrients, in which most people are using phosphoric acid, in which phosphorus starts becoming unavailable 5.6, 5.7. So if your pH is even just teetering on that, in which that's where you have the purple stems and stuff like that. So that's one of those things where like most times when I see people having problems with nutrients, it's not them having problems with nutrients. It's them having problems with how they feed, how often they feed, or pH issues. Plain and simple,
Hell yeah. Oh yeah, man. Well, we're coming to the end. If anybody has any questions, make sure to drop it in chat. This is going to be your final chance to talk to my man. How easy is it to propagate in an endless supply of great white or
streptomyces?
Yeah.
I honestly don't know, but I'm sure it's an easy enough. I'm sure it's easy enough to look up. In which breeding all these things isn't terrible. It's just a question of having the equipment, and understanding it, so that you're not breeding something that's anaerobic and just aerobic. So.
Hell yeah. And then I know there's like other fucking stuff out there like Root Shield and stuff like that to help with fighting off all of that, but it really still even with the use of those, you can see it in commercial facilities all the time with people who don't know how like actually what they're doing, like, or not paying attention. They overwater something. Even with like all of these things that are supposed to help, you can still overwater
very easily. Very easily.
It throws off the whole motherfucking game when you do that.
Yeah, again, that's part of that intuition. And look, there's water, there's moisture meters, there's all kinds of ways to mitigate these things. It's really just collecting data, and reading your fucking plants. ChemD doesn't want to get fed the same way as San Fernando Valley, so and it's just like I tell people all the time, It's just like your fucking kids, man. Like you have 3 kids, Billy, Bobby, and Susie. Billy likes cheeseburgers. Bobby likes cheeseburgers with onions. And Susie, she doesn't want to eat the bread. She only wants meat with cheese on it. You know what I mean?
Or
Like,
just cheese and bread.
yeah, or just cheese and bread or whatever. Maybe she doesn't even like fucking burgers. She wants chicken.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's one of those things where, like, in a commercial setting, you either need to figure out what fits in the way you do things or get rid of it, or you need to cater to that individual genetic. It's one or the other, you know? So just what are you going for? For me, I'm going for the best weed. That's all I care about. Best weed, which makes the best hash. That's it.
Oh yeah. And then I know. Well, shit. I don't see any. Oh, we got this one. There you go.
I'm out the email request. It's Gabe at the number 5, the 8 spelled out.com. So just send me an email or just go to GMoneyLuv, GMUNEYLUV on Instagram and just say, hey, I saw you on Ames. Set me up. All I need is your name, your email, your address, and your phone number, and I'll get you set up. Oh, and like I said, all we ask is you pay for shipping. So if you're in Colorado, you can come pick it up at the shop.
Too easy. Where's the shop located?
4600 Pecos. We're right in North Denver.
Motherfucker. I'm gonna write that down. I'll be there.
Next time you're in Denver, I'll get you set up, bro.
Too easy. I'll be there. I'll have to fucking write that down when I find some paper.
Right.
We got a question real quick. Bluesman, do you personally do lights off, lights on, lights longer at the end of flower or anything?
Okay, so, and I just had this discussion the other day because the lights longer thing makes me think that they're listening to someone else who tells them to run at 18 hours, in which that shit's fucking not something you should do. Here's the reality. Scientifically, and just having done it, lights off at the end of the cycle for like a day or two definitely increases the terps. You know, it's definitely a cool practice. I'm not anti it. With me, I have some cultivar that are going longer, so I kind of can't do it. But it's definitely not anything I'm against. I do believe in, depending on what you're trying to do, if you're trying to get shit to finish faster, you can definitely go to like an 11 and 13 at the end of the cycle, just to, again, and that would be 11 hours of light, 13 hours of darkness, understanding that plants are flower, you know, because of photoperiod. So it's that 12 hours of darkness that is why plants flower. And that's where I've seen people talking about 18 and 6 the last like week of flower. And I actually just addressed this on my podcast. I vehemently disagree with that. Because basically what you're doing is triggering your plants into going back into a vegetative state because, like I said, they're photoperiodic on the sleep cycle, not the day cycle. So realistically, the way to do that and do it correctly, and you're welcome to try this, but would be 18 hours on, 12 hours off. So then all of a sudden your lights are coming on at different times for the last week. That would make more sense to me than doing 18-6. But yeah, and I appreciate that. Yeah, no, that's what I would say. But like I said, it can't hurt. And at least last week of flower, turn off your CO2 because the CO2 actually shreds some of your terpene molecules. Like it'll just burst them. So it'll actually, you know, and that's why the room will end up being kind of more pungent. And then I usually turn down my my PPFD to like, let's say 800. So if I'm running a max of like 1050, I'll usually turn that down at the end. And that's been proven to increase terps, and cannabinoids. So
really just bringing down the pressure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, literally, you're just mimicking the fall.
Mm.
As here in Colorado, that when the sun's south in December 21st, like, it's pretty far south, and those rays that come through the atmosphere at this angle, as opposed to from straight above, are way different. So, in that respect, I do like turning my lights down at the end of the cycle. So that's pretty much it, though.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. And I know everybody's excited to try out these pep prep prep packs.
Yeah.
Prep packs?
Yep. Yep.
And we're talking a little bit before the show, and
And look, if people just want to try the additives too, like, I'll send them just the additives. Like, I'm not saying it's not like you need to try my entire line. If you just want to try the Ruby or the Winter Frost or the Silica or whatever, if there's one product you think that's really cool, I mean, by all means, dude, we encourage people to try whatever they want for their garden. I'm not going to come out here. I'm a cultivator, not a fucking salesman. So I'm just like, hey, I'll sell you the whole line happily. But I really just want people to be happy with their garden. And, if it's just the Fulvic or the Winter Frost, by all means, man.
hell yeah. Well, I was like I was saying, I'm more than willing to sponsor the paying for the shipping. So if we want, we could do a couple giveaways real quick, like maybe 2 or 3.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
I'm down, bro. I'm definitely down.
Let's go. Psycho, if you are in the back, if you could pull up the giveaway thing. Yeah. While we look through chat, see if anybody else got any more questions. If you could, please. Thank you. Yes. Oh, yeah. I got you. 15 minutes. Let's see. Got Wi-Fi currently.
I'll tell you. You said you were working in Oak. I was coming between Craig and Oak like 2 years ago, and for the second time in my life, I saw a golden eagle back there.
Really?
Yeah, I saw a golden eagle on the Eastern Shore in Maryland when I was a teenager. But that's the only other time I've seen a golden eagle. But yeah, no, I saw a golden eagle right at the top of the pass there, coming from Oak to Craig. So I hope you see that golden eagle, because, man, that fucker was big and beautiful.
No, I just see hella fucking elks and deer like all the goddamn time. All the time.
It's a lonely road, bro. That's a lonely road out there.
But it's you'll be driving down the street and all of a sudden there's a giant fucking herd. You put a Jug Dealer. Perfect. That'll work too. Let's go. There it is. Drop Jug Dealer in the chat for your chance to win a little prep pack. And if you don't win it, don't worry. You could always hit my man up. He literally just said his email. Jesus Christ.
It's Gabe at 5, the number 5, EIGHT.com.
Hell yeah. Just in case.
Just in case any of y'all missed it.
Oh yeah. No, man. You'd be driving down the street and all of a sudden, like, giant fucking herd just walks out in the middle of it, and they literally just sit there and stare at you. They are not threatened by the vehicles or nothing. You lay on your horn, you can do whatever you want, and they ain't moving. And then, not to mention the moose. People don't know. People don't know that you shouldn't do that when it comes to a moose. Like, if a moose comes out in the road, don't start blaring on your horn. Don't start approaching it with your vehicle. That bitch is bigger than your vehicle, and he will destroy it. No problem.
But, my good friend used to run where you're going, Kind Bill, and he hit a moose on that road, and it peeled the top of his car open like a fucking can opener.
Yeah.
And it peeled, not for nothing, it peeled the top of his head open like a can opener too.
Oh shit.
Yeah, it fucked him up. The rest of it's funny because people don't realize this about moose, but they really are like Bullwinkle. Like they really do look like Bullwinkle, or they have the skinny legs. So
Yeah.
like the legs were skinny enough that when he hit it, it didn't set off the airbag. And then the moose went airborne and its horns went into the windshield, opened his side of the car like a can opener, but the rest of the car was actually in pretty good shape.
God damn.
Yeah, it was wild. He and the car, like the roof, were not in good shape, but and then he slid down like a 150-foot embankment. But yeah, the moose out there are savage, bro.
Yeah. Well, fuck, bro. I'm sorry to hear that. I hope he actually made it. I
He
don't.
did. He did. No, he's managing a garden in Vermont now. Yeah.
Okay. I was like, I didn't know that he died. Like,
No,
fuck.
he didn't. He didn't die. He made it out just fine. It did. I mean, dude, if you had looked at the top of his head, you'd be like, "Wow, I can't believe he did make it." But
Oh, shit. That bad. Ah, damn. Just got done watching Jug Dealer Part 1. Best.
dude,
Hell yeah.
we're gonna have Jaren's buddy Dan, who is an entomologist, on the show soon, and we're gonna do a whole episode from an entomologist perspective on bugs and all that stuff. So stay tuned. That's going to be an awesome episode.
Hell yeah, bro. Definitely gonna be there. I once took down a tiger with. Shut the fuck up. This guy. Don't mind him. He's alright.
Hey, I mean, I once smoked a Chester the Cheetah dab rig. Does that count?
Hell yeah. I fucking love it, dude. No, so do you guys have what do you guys use for pests?
We have a couple products we use that we sell. We have a russet spider mite mix, and then we have a multi, which I would recommend for thrips and stuff like that. And then we sell the eco neem oil. And then personally, I'll use like sulfur and predators as well.
Okay. Yes, the fucking sulfur. Sulfur is it's OP, man. It's
Yeah,
OP.
dude, it works. You know, the biggest thing is just making sure you rinse it off
Hmm.
before you apply any oils or anything like that. But you know, it's not only beneficial in fighting pests, but it's one of the 17 essential elements. So it's beneficial to the plant. And foliars are helpful. So
Hell yeah. And then I had a Gabe on a while back, and he was talking about you guys coming out with a silica product.
yep. Yeah, our silica, we have a product called silicium.
Silicium.
It's a monosilicic acid. Basically it's down to a monomer sized particle. So a lot of the ones you'll see out there on the market are polymers. So they're just really a bigger particle size. I think ours is down to like 0.05 nanograms. So it's just really, really small particle size. So it works. It works really well as like a foliar, in which that does help fight pests as well. It just basically, like I say to folks, what it does is it helps thicken the cell wall. So it just makes your plants like a thicker cell wall is just harder for a pest to bite into. So something like a thrip or something that's a leaf miner, it just like imagine like trying to bite into it and like your jaw breaking. You know what I mean? So that's one of
Mhm.
the big things with silica. And then it helps with drought stress too. Like if you miss a watering and your plants start to lose turgid pressure, it's going to help your plant just kind of, again, because I always say to people, like, it's almost like you ever see a dump truck and you look at the back of a dump truck and you see the airbags at the back of the dump truck. It
Yeah.
almost makes your cell like more like that, where it's more like kind of almost rubbery. So Grandma just put up this thing where like my plants that I have right now, like they're just hanging, but they're not breaking. So it literally makes that like it's kind of like makes it like a rubber band.
Mm. Shit. Okay. Damn. Got a lot of good products, man.
Yeah, there's a ton of the Rhizium we have. It helps with rooting. That stuff. Like I say to folks, it'll put roots on a popsicle stick. Like it is just wild stuff. It makes it so vigorous and just packs the roots in there. So yeah, there's a bunch of different stuff we have on the site. It's all good. It's all beneficial. And reality is, it's not like any other company's products,
Yeah. Hell yeah. Yeah, no, I know from what I've gathered, you guys definitely have the most concentrated and like actually good form, you know what I mean?
The biggest thing is just the high quality. It's just like anything else. Like, pink Himalayan salt and all these other different things. Like they all add different flavors, man, and that's just it. It's really about making your stuff stand out in a market where everybody's growing gelato under Lux lighting with Athena, you know, like how do you differentiate your stuff, you know? And if that's what you want, then by all means, go to McDonald's. You know what I mean? Like if you want, that's why people go to McDonald's, because they know they can go to McDonald's here, they can go to McDonald's in Pennsylvania. They're gonna get the same fucking thing. I get that. Bro. That's not me. I'm the scratch kitchen guy, So that's really the best way to describe it is like if you want to be the McDonald's guy, by all means, dude. Grow your gelato, same newts, same lights, same everything, and get the same result.
Hell yeah.
Just don't complain when you can't sell it,
We're gonna run this one and then we'll run one more and then just make sure to message me, let me know how much the shipping is and I'll send it
Yep.
up.
Yeah, just make sure I just need people's addresses.
Yeah. You guys gotta email him, okay? So I know what the shipping cost is, right? So email him at his email so you can get it, right? And then tell it like I'll send him the screenshots of your name. It'll be okay, but just email him so he has your address.
We'll get you handled.
All right. Oh, fuck. Let's go. It's Soaky, bro. Fucking congratulations, brother. That's what I'm talking about. Hell yeah. Congratulations. That's a good guy. That's a good guy right there.
Where's Soaky out of? Do we know?
Oh man, he's gonna get mad at me. I should know this. I think I even have his address already too. That's what the funny thing is. Sent my man a birthday present a while back.
Nice. Well, we'll get you handled.
Yeah.
Let me know whatever you like. I said, I will send you the whole pet pack. If there's any other things you want, just let me know. Get you all taken care of.
Too easy. Yeah. And then 1 second. Too easy. Yeah, dude, you can just draw it a second time if you want. Yeah, that'll be easier. Run it back. Who's gonna be? Let's fucking go, bro. Congratulations, man. Congratulations. That's what I'm talking about. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Another winner. All right. Too easy. Well, that's about all we got for today. And for all the people who didn't win, again, still make sure to email my man. You're going to have to pay your own shipping. But yeah, again, thank you for coming up, bro. Thank you for being here. Fucking awesome picking your brain, talking about some new mill. What got you into it?
Hell yeah, bro. I appreciate it.
Hell yeah. As always, y'all. Oh, wait, shit. No, wait, yeah, no. Well, I'll get you on that next one. As always, y'all, stay high.